think that's working. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Before we get started, just want to let you know again that you will be, everything you say will be anonymized, no identifiable information, and at any point during this chat, you have the right to stand up and walk out without explaining. You can withdraw anything at a later time that you've said, or amend something that you've said even after the interview has finished. I'm also going to be taking some brief notes. If you want to have a look at my notes, feel free. If you have any questions, feel free.
Okay.
And do you have any questions before we start?
No.
No? Okay, great. Also, I'm just a research assistant. I have no other affiliation with the uni. I'm not tied to any specific department or anything. So really, I hope that this is a safe space for you to say anything you want.
Okay.
So if we have no questions, I guess we can begin. Why don't you start by telling me what brought you to this interview after seeing the advertisement?
Yes. Actually, what I found out here when I first came in Hong Kong, it was completely different to what I was expecting. So I am actually complaining all the time to the university, to the department, to things that they are not as such they have told me in the beginning before coming here. So yeah, I'm usually never miss an opportunity to do something like that. And also I believe that these things make things better.
Right,
So
yeah.
if no one's tried, nothing is going to
That is
better.
our aim. We're really hoping to use these lived experiences to inform any kind of policy change in the future. Okay, so you said that's Hong Kong is completely different to what you thought.
Yes.
And that.
Well, in different ways.
Yeah.
There are some good things and some bad things, but there are many things that they didn't expect it.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, feel free to. What are some of these things that were
What?
different? What are some of the things that were different for you? And what?
Actually, the worst thing I found out here that I didn't actually expect it and that it has caused many problems is the language. When I was coming here, they told me that this is an English-speaking university, that it's an English-speaking country, etc. So I came here and I can't communicate.
Can't communicate.
Yeah. And this is a major problem. I mean, when I'm traveling abroad, when I'm living in another country, I'm trying to integrate in the culture. But it's impossible to do that here. So I feel like a foreigner, that I feel that the locals don't want me, I feel that they don't want to talk to me, and I feel that completely an outcast.
Outcast, yeah. And you think that this is largely attributable to language barriers and the fact that you can't communicate?
I think that usually the worst problem is language. I mean, this is what usually causes that.
Right.
In
Okay.
general terms.
Okay, so let's stick with language for a bit. In terms of language, how is that? Well, you mentioned that it's impossible to integrate with locals, and that you feel like an outcast. You said, and you feel like they don't want to get to know you.
It's not only they don't want to know me. For example, I am going in the streets to ask directions, and people are not answering. They're just leaving. I mean, to my culture, this is rude. I'm going to the supermarket. I ask some questions, and the staff is not even staying there to respond to me. They just leave. I mean, they make daily life difficult. I know there are many people, expats in Hong Kong, that they have a great life and living the expat life, but I can't afford it. I don't want to do that.
Right.
So, going in the local places, it's completely difficult without, even in a restaurant, I can't even order. I can't even read the menu.
They don't make the effort to try and understand you.
Yeah, it's like they don't care. That's what I
And
mean.
would you say that this is also the same for inside the university?
Yes. And this is actually that worries me more because it's an English-speaking university. Probably if I knew that, I wouldn't come here in the beginning.
What sort of people are you referring to?
Oh, even in the canteens. I'm going to the canteen and they don't speak English.
So you feel that HKU has marketed itself wrongly in the sense that they claim to be an English-speaking university,
Yes,
but they're
it's
not.
They have also many seminars, etc., but not in English. So it's not for everyone.
Right.
So they have their own language or Mandarin, or language or Cantonese, please. And even more easy things like even in a class, even in something, even in a sports, I'm going to the university. When they are referring to me, they are talking to English, but all the other students are not English. They talk to each other in another language. So I can't learn from the others. I'm just there waiting for someone to talk to me.
Right. So you can't.
Because I can't be part of it. And I believe that it is also a big fault of the university, because to any country I've ever been, the local market, they are trying to integrate the expats in their life, and first of all, to make people learn the language. Here, they don't want the expats to learn the language. I tried to learn in the university, and they had just one class for Cantonese for international students, 1 hour, that I couldn't attend because the hour was not the best. So I complained and I asked, why do you put just one? For international, you put more for Mandarin students to learn Cantonese. I mean, we have a problem on that. I mean, you should do something. But no difference. I tried at least to do what I could do, the best I do, last year to attend a Mandarin course in the university, the department that they have languages. It was a paid one, so I had to pay a lot of money, but still I had to learn the language because I can't live here without that. And they stopped it this year, so I can't continue. So the university don't even give me the opportunity to learn the language. I have sent emails to all departments, and they told me, no, it is for undergrads, it is for staff, but postgraduate students like me, it's not.
So they discriminate also based on your program?
Yes, they have classes for undergrad students, but I think for undergrad students it is also compulsory.
Okay.
They have for staff, but there's nothing for postgrads. It looks like that they don't want
To integrate?
They don't. No, they don't want international or postgraduate. They are focused in students from mainland China, and they don't care about anyone else.
And you said that you've sent emails. What has been the responses? How are your complaints or your raising of issues? How has that been received by
Which
them?
of all? You mean I have sent a lot?
Well, generally, what is the feedback that you get?
That the first one, when I asked about the Cantonese courses, they told me that the idea is that we have more postgraduate students from mainland China, so that's why we have more classes in that. So there are a lot of international students, so there's no point to have more. That was the idea. From the Mandarin classes that I asked in the Chinese faculty, the language faculty, they told me just that unfortunately the classes are only for undergrad students.
Does it sound like? Did you ever feel that the university was trying to make an effort to accommodate you?
I don't think it's a matter of accommodating. It's like, I know when you are the minority, you always have a problem because all the benefits are going to the majority in all different things, not only in the university but everywhere. But the problem is if they are trying to attract international students, and when I'm talking about internationals, I'm not talking about mainland China because mainland China for me it's not overseas. I mean, even when I've seen that research, you said in like that the interview is going to be in English, and we will try, and don't worry. But I mean, it's an English-speaking university. People here should speak English. I mean, no one should even make an excuse about people who don't speak English.
So in this sense, language or the ability to speak Chinese affords you certain privileges that you as an English speaker might not get.
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course it gives you... But when you're living in a country, I mean, for me, you need to speak the language, but give me the opportunity to learn it.
Right.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I can sense your frustration with this.
And I wouldn't have a problem if they had informed me about that in advance.
Right.
When I came in Hong Kong, it's an English-speaking country, so I was expecting other things. I came here and they found other things. And the idea was, okay, I will go there and I will learn the language, because I always wanted to learn Chinese, but again, not even an opportunity.
Right. Right. That's very misleading and frustrating. What about how does language affect your ability to interact with faculty?
I have a problem to communicate with the staff, with the secretaries, etc. They have the same problem. It's like I'm asking something, they are very rude to me. I'm trying to be, but I suppose it is language. They speak English, but they don't make better effort.
Make the effort to try and speak to you. Would you say that this is true also for your international friends?
No, my international friends are mostly speak very good English. But I mean, you mean that they have the same problems?
Yeah.
Yes. Most of them, yeah, they have the same problems.
What about in terms of the teaching staff?
In terms of the teaching staff, well, I'm a PhD student and I don't have any classes. So I don't actually attend any classes. I have only attended some tutoring that I am doing, so
Right.
it's a different thing.
Okay. In those tutor sessions, are they one-on-one or are they small group?
And the tutoring, you mean? Depend.
Okay. Do you ever find yourself being like the single international student in a group of locals?
Yes, many times.
And
I usually find myself being the only international student in a group of mainland China students. This is the most common.
so you have actually more interactions, or you're in environments with more mainland students than local students.
Because I'm a PhD, so most PhD students are from mainland China. That's the
Right.
idea.
Right. Okay.
So in most cases, they are from mainland China.
Right. Wow. Okay. The language is more than just a barrier to communication in this sense.
Yes, and also I think there is a difference in the culture. For example, in my culture, when maybe we are 10 people in my country, and there is one that doesn't speak the language, so we all speak English, just that one person. Here, they don't do that. I mean, people speak in Chinese even if you are there. I mean, in my culture, this is considered completely rude. No one is doing that.
And how does this play into your sense of community here at HKU?
What do you mean?
Do you feel a sense of community? Is it affected by language?
Yeah, I think mostly.
Do you feel a sense of community at all?
Would say.
Yeah? What makes you feel a sense of community?
The sense of community, you mean, in general. Because there are many things that are organized like that to put you in a sense of community, but still doesn't work normally, or as it should be.
Can you speak a little bit more about that? I'm not familiar with the... You said that there are things that develop a sense of community that don't really work.
Yeah, because they're trying to organize some things, but actually, practically, let me give you an example. Well, at least not in my occasion, but I have many friends that they are living in halls. They actually are forced to participate in different things. But when something is forced, it doesn't work.
Right.
Sorry. I mean, you don't want it. Yeah, that's another thing that I've noticed here. I mean, sometimes I'm feeling this is a boarding school. This is not an actual university. I mean, I don't want anyone to care about what I'm doing in my personal life. What I'm doing, I'm working, I'm doing my job, that's all. When I'm leaving my job, it's my own. No one has anything to say about that. I'm living alone since I was 18. So I'm not coming here now that I'm 20 years later to live with, in that sense of regulations, etc.
Right. Did you have any experience in halls, or did you hear this from your friends?
Not here. I am living in a hall, but my hall is a bit open-minded.
Okay.
So
Not as rigid as some of the other halls.
No, it's not at all. But most of them, what of my friends have told me, they're pretty bad.
Right. So they're forcing you to engage in certain events.
They're forcing you, they're putting you very strict regulations. For example, again, you can't have visitors. Again, in my culture, when someone is coming in the city you are, if you don't invite him to stay in your house, it's considered rude. It's a bad thing.
Right.
I don't know if this is a cultural difference or something, but it makes me feel pretty bad.
Yeah.
That I can't actually behave the way.
Right. Do you feel? You said it makes you feel pretty bad. Does that mean that does your culture ever feel? Do you ever feel like you have to compromise your culture, or change your behaviors?
Yes, like that. This was an example. That when I have a friend telling me, "Okay, I'm coming to Hong Kong," and I say, "No, yeah, you can't stay with me."
And how does that influence your sense of self-identity?
I don't think it is more of self-identity. I understand how these things work, but that it actually causes me problems in my relationships with my friends and other people. When I even have to tell my mother, no, you can't come. I mean, I was living in her house for all my life. And now I have to tell you, no, I can't host you.
Yeah. Right. So what I'm hearing is, first of all, there's a huge a language barrier that is a barrier to many different things. There's a barrier to knowledge. There's a barrier to maybe friendship, because through communication.
Yep.
And maybe also there's a barrier to...
It's more likely language is more make your daily life difficult. So when I'm going to the supermarket, that's the part that I need to find something I can't.
Right.
It just makes the everyday life
A little bit more difficult. Yeah. And then also there's this rigidity of the school in general, but you're also talking about just the halls,
Yes.
how they have rigid rules.
I'm taking that as an example.
Right.
I can see here that they're behaving to students like children.
Right.
And I understand it is at some point, but I'm not an undergrad, I'm a postgraduate student, and I could... they can't... I mean, it's a matter of respect. I don't actually accept people to behave like that.
Right. Would you say this rigidity is also true in other parts of the institution?
In general, you mean, or in Hong Kong?
In HKU?
Yeah, I think it's...
What parts?
I can't say that I have noticed something specific that I can think now.
Or let me rephrase. Have there been times within HKU where you feel like you don't have autonomy?
A part of the accommodation matters, you mean? I could say that they are not very flexible.
In what sense?
I mean that different people have different needs. Different studies are different. So, yeah, and I face also problems with my research and my work because of that lack of flexibility.
What sort of problems? Could you talk a little bit more about?
Yeah. I can give an example. For example, my research requires data gathering to other places because Hong Kong doesn't have the facilities that I need. But they don't provide money to go there because they say, okay, you have to do that. Or we only provide this, so you can't. But I don't have a lab here. You provide labs for other students, but not for me. So
Right.
I suppose that they were trying to change it, my supervisor trying to change it, so this thing takes months. I mean, they have to do that to go to another department. I suppose that there is bureaucracy, lack of flexibility, and all like that. Or even, for example, when I first came, because in my discipline, again, we don't work in Windows computers. We can't work. We need a Linux or a Mac computer. So my supervisor actually told me, okay, we will get from my funding, we will get you a computer. And then the university said, no, you can't do that. I mean, we don't provide that to students, but they can't work without that. But it's not in the regulations, so they can't do anything.
Right.
It's
Okay.
a lack of flexibility. They just have 1, 2, 3, and if you tell them, think a bit out of the box, no. There's no out of the box.
So do you have the resources you need?
Hmm?
Do you have the resources that you need to do your work?
No.
So how does that work?
It doesn't actually. Well, we're trying. Actually, I'm trying. I think I will get. They started doing something about provide some funding, etc. But I don't know how much time it will take, and I will have to finish my PhD at some point.
Right.
So I don't have too much time to wait for the bureaucracy. Yeah. So I don't know how it will work.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, at some part, I mean, it was one of my mistakes. You're not going to a university that doesn't have a lab or the facilities for your research. But still, there are many places that they don't have the facilities, but they provide funding to go to the facilities.
Right.
I didn't know that in HKU this doesn't exist. Even my supervisor didn't know it because he was new here. So also my field is underrepresented in HKU. There are very few people to do that, so it's not really.
This lack of facilities and the lack of funding for you to go to other facilities, was that known to you before you came to HKU?
I knew that there were no facilities here because, it would be impossible to have these facilities here. I mean, I'm an astronomer, so I know that Hong Kong has no telescope. It can't have a telescope.
Okay.
But about the funding, no, I didn't know that.
So, I assume that once you faced all these issues, that you reached out. What happened, or what was the? How did people respond to your claims to be like you need these certain facilities or you need these fundings to do this kinds of research?
Yeah, actually, this was not. I mean, it started from me, but then it started from also my faculty in my department. So people, the professors, etc., the staff that doing started complaining about that. So it was not me that I did something officially. It was mostly my supervisor and other people. They faced that problem. But for me, I'm indicating that every time in my reports, in this kind of things.
Right. Would you say that your faculty or your supervisor advocate for your needs?
Yeah, because it's not only my needs. I mean, I was the first one, so they found out that we have these problems. So they took that, because my supervisor probably didn't know that. He found it out while I was here.
Right.
His first PhD student, he had just came in Hong Kong, so he didn't know all these problems. So when he came here and we tried to do things, he found out that...
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
wow.
This is how it started, not for me, but for all students in... and also postdocs. I mean, for the postdocs, it's even worst. So they're trying to...
Yeah. Wow, it sounds a little bit messy. Well, then, what about... You said that you didn't really know about the lack... that they didn't have funding for you to use other labs. So, this information... What with this information in mind, what drew you to HKU?
What?
What drew you to HKU?
In the first place, you mean, why I came here? I like the project. I mean, I didn't apply for PhD in Hong Kong. I have seen the subject, the research project. I like the research project. It was on discipline I wanted, so I applied for that specifically.
And then it was at HKU, and that's why you're here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in my subject, we don't really have the opportunity to choose the place. You actually have to choose the project.
Right. Okay. Well, are you happy with your project?
Yes. Well, if I had my data, it would be even better.
There are significant barriers to resources also.
Yeah, it is a bit difficult in general cases because for getting my data, I need to apply to use the facilities, and then I can't go there all year because there are certain periods in the year that you can use them, and then. If the weather is bad, you just lose your chance.
Right.
It had happened to me before to go there, and the weather was that bad, so there was no point.
Right. Wow.
It's difficult in the first place, so it just don't make it more difficult.
Yeah, it's made more difficult by their lack of... Okay. Do you think that you've had to, readjust your expectations of yourself since being here?
Of myself.
Or your work, or your success, your definition of success, or your goal? Have you had to readjust that?
No, I don't think so. I'm usually very determined when I'm doing something, so I don't change.
Well, yeah. I think what I'm trying to say, let me rephrase that. How certain things are made harder, very difficult, maybe even impossible. Mm-hmm. How does that play into your sense of success as a PhD student?
Yeah, that doesn't actually, because when something is completely difficult, or even I'm just trying to find another way to do it.
Right. So you're innovative.
Yeah, I mean, don't actually give up. Just okay, I'll find another way.
Right. Do you feel any, apart from the frustration, do you feel any pessimism or resentment?
No.
No? Wow, very resilient.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in myself. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Through everything, that you're still able to be so positive about your work. Okay. Well, aside from the language and aside from the facilities available, what other challenges have you faced? They can also be outside of HKU.
Yeah. Well, outside it's the language problem, of course.
Right.
Even outside the
Right.
HQ. What other challenges? Can't think of something. Yeah. Can't think of something right now.
That's okay. It's okay. We can come back to that.
Yes. Now, never mind. Local food. I mean,
Local
I
food.
can't eat that thing every day. I need some change.
Do you make food for yourself, or do you usually eat out?
I'm cooking too, but yeah, I mean, it's so cheap to just take out, so.
You usually just yeah. I guess I don't know. Food is always something that's a tricky one to adapt to when you move countries. It could be so different to what you're used to.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't have a problem. I like different foods, but I just can't stand the same food every day. And the problem here is that everything else apart of local food is very expensive.
Right.
So I have to stick to local food.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was nice at the beginning, right? When you first started having
But
it.
no.
Well, okay. What about some other expectations? Or what? It doesn't sound like many of the expectations. It sounds like your expectations were quite different to how it is now, in terms of, well, you said that perhaps the way that the school or your faculty described itself online or in the resources that you received before coming here, described itself as a little bit different to how they are. You mentioned language. You mentioned maybe they weren't clear about.
Yeah, I know about the department and the job. The worst is lack of flexibility. This is the worst part. I mean, bureaucracy and lack of flexibility, I think.
What are some? Is there a solution to that?
Bureaucracy? I don't know if there is any solution to the bureaucracy in general. I wish, but I think that if they have found the solution, it will be
Right.
not
Yeah.
only in Hong Kong, in general.
Yeah,
I mean.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure this problem happens also at many other institutions
Yes.
and organizations around the world. But has it been a particularly negative experience for you compared to other institutions you've attended?
Particular. The facilities. The facilities, that they're not very convenient. For example, I'm working at night, and here it's pretty hard to go to my office at night.
How come?
Because they close all the elevators and escalators.
Okay, so you have to walk up to your office.
Yeah, no. I'm not.
You just don't.
Yeah, I'm just working from home. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm working in a computer shop.
Yeah. Okay. So inflexibility is a big one. Language is a big one. What about your? I'm trying to use different words. Do you still feel as motivated as you did before you started your program?
I'm feeling motivated about my research, but this has nothing to do with the program. I mean, I will be motivated no matter what because I love what I'm doing. I love my research.
Right.
So I would love it even if I was not entitled to any institution.
Right. So your experience so far doesn't it can't hinder your motivation.
Oh no,
That's great.
no way.
But it could, maybe in a utopia, it could enhance it. It could strengthen it, your motivation and your drive, right? What are some ways that the school could do that?
Yeah, it would be like that just to be more flexible. But to understand that people have different needs, that different research have different needs, so to be more flexible.
Do you think that the root of this inflexibility, or do you have any thoughts about where the root of this inflexibility can be?
I I don't know, but I suppose this, I think, I can't be sure, but what other people have told me in other discussions, that has to do also with the culture. That the people are very good to learn 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 things, they do that, but if you tell them to do something else, no, they don't think.
Right. In your opinion, is it possible for a Chinese or a Hong Kong institution to be culturally sensitive?
Well, depends what we mean, cultural sensitive. I mean, it's a good thing that everyone has its own culture, but and keep their own culture. But just if you want to make your place like a multicultural society, you need to also accept and provide facilities to other cultures too.
Right.
Or if you don't expect to be a multicultural society and say that from the beginning. I mean, it's okay with that. I am coming from a non-multicultural society, but it's obvious that it's not a multicultural society.
Right. And you think that Hong Kong shows itself as a multicultural society?
Yeah, yeah. This is what if you're not here, this is what people expect. And actually, no. I mean, most expats that are working in banking, etc., and they only hang out by themselves and not with the locals, yes, for them also it's a multicultural society.
But they live within pockets.
Yes.
And that's the same for within the university in terms of, would that be the equivalent of like social groups?
Mm-hmm.
Most of your friends are international, or do you have any local or mainland friends?
Yeah, I know people, but well, don't say close friends, but yes, I know local people.
So there is some openness to other cultures.
Yeah, there are. It's not that they are not open. The problem is the language.
Right.
That when you are in a place that 9 people are locals or from mainland China, they don't pay attention to you because you don't speak the language, so they just talk to each other. I mean, I've noticed that when I was doing my master's, we had a flat meeting. I had 5 Chinese flatmates. It was me and another girl, and the flat meeting they were speaking Chinese. We were a part of the flat, but
right.
No.
Right.
So I think it has to do with the culture.
Yeah. Is it possible to have integration in a multicultural setting if there's no mutual language?
You need just the effort. I suppose it's a kind of effort.
And is effort culturally bounded?
I don't know, I can't be sure. But just what it looks like.
Yeah. Do you think that your the segregation, is that the right word? Would it be segregated? Separation, division.
Okay.
You said that doesn't affect your sense of self. It doesn't affect your quality of research.
Yeah.
So what negative impacts does it have?
Well, to make difficult the everyday life.
Okay.
I mean, everyday life things, like easy things, like that, go to the supermarket, go to get the bus, these things.
Right. Do you think that there is a solution on your end? And then to that, and is there a solution on the receiving end to that?
I don't think that there is any easy solution to that.
Right.
I mean, just to adapt.
Yeah.
The circumstance, I mean, yeah, I can do it to adapt to that. But that doesn't mean that I like it. I'm just adapting to that.
Right.
But I mean, for the university, especially for the university for HKU, it should be, for me, they should have, for example, the staff should be in English and have the menu in the canteens in English. At least these things.
So
and provide the resources to international students to learn the language.
They don't have these resources.
For me, no.
They took away the class, you said.
And it was a paying one. It was not for me. It was for everyone. I mean, it was not for students.
Right.
It was just for everyone who wanted to learn, but it was just in the university. You had to pay a lot of money for that.
So the university had to pay. You didn't have to pay.
I had to pay.
Oh, you had to pay the university.
Yes.
And then that's the one that they stopped this
Yes.
year. And
They
they didn't offer an alternative.
No, they said they closed the department, and probably we'll see in the future if they will open it again. I don't know.
Have you tried to? Do they have any other? Do they have online resources? Do they have
For what?
for learning Chinese, for example?
No, I mean, officially this is an English-speaking university, so officially you don't need to learn language.
Right.
But
Right.
practically,
Yeah. They shouldn't have that. That shouldn't be an issue in the first place. If they're an English-speaking university,
exactly.
they wouldn't need to provide these resources.
Yeah, at
because-
least in the university, but still in the university there is a problem. But since outside the university still not everyone speaks English, they should provide the opportunity to students to learn the language, so in order to be able to integrate to the society. But apparently they don't care.
Wow. You've shared a lot of personal thoughts and feelings, and I thank you for that. I sense your frustration, and I'm also thinking while we're chatting about what can be done. And maybe you're right. Maybe there is no easy solution.
Practically there is no any solution. The practical things that I have asked the university is put classes
Right.
in language. Take the staff here to speak English. Put a menu in English.
Right.
Not all canteens have a menu in English.
And I'm sure you're not the first student to experience these language barriers, and you will not be the last.
Yeah, definitely. But that's a problem that we're not allowed. I mean, how many postgraduate students are here that are not from Hong Kong or from China? Not many.
Right. So as a member of the minority, you feel a lot of your needs are dismissed. That's very frustrating.
I feel it also with my fellow PhD students in my department. Well, let's say that my office it's a different place. So there are no other PhD students there. I have an office here too, but in this office here, in the campus, I feel that not only in the office, but in general, that the fellow PhD students don't actually pay attention to me, but supposedly they're all from Little China.
So they don't pay attention to you.
Yeah, they don't actually are very... Well, this is also, I suppose, a cultural barrier. In my culture, we are very socialized to speak. Here are more like keep some distance to other people.
But this doesn't affect your ability to research, to
No, to my
studies,
research, no, but it affects my ability to communicate practically.
and
yes.
socially, and also
Yes.
maybe your about your well-being and your happiness here.
Yeah.
That's affected also. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, adapting.
Yeah. How long has it been?
1.5 years.
1.5. Keep going. Okay. We covered that. Yeah, I feel like we've covered these questions. And you were very clear.
See?
You were very clear on what you wanted to say. I am very interested in what you said about the language and what you said about culture, as ambiguous as that word is, and what you said about the rigidity and the inflexibility. These are things that have come up also in previous interviews.
Why? I'm wondering.
So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that this is helpful. I mean, if no one talks, nothing is going to change.
Right. Yeah. Apart from these points, or on these points, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Anything else that you want us to know in this research?
No, I think I said everything.
I hope
Everything
you
on mind.
you were able to vent. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
I really also felt your frustration, and I hope that hopefully this research can accumulate into some very positive change.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we'll end there.